I was well into my Friday night as I typically would, staying up most of the night, playing games and looking at stupid meme sites, when the room went dark. My phone suddenly illuminated on my desk where I had just plugged it in, and I realized that the power had gone out. I cursed softly as the screen went off. I knew the phone hadn't charged nearly long enough for me to use it as a light for any length of time, and I was relatively certain we didn't have any actual flashlights around. Just as I was wondering if it would be worth it to try to grope around in the dark for a lighter, I heard my roommate's door open across the hall. There was a brief shuffle of movement. Then I heard my door open too. Hey, power's out, huh? I considered giving a smart-ass answer to the asinine question, but ultimately I decided it wasn't worth it. Yeah, it seems like it. You don't have a flashlight, do you? In the near-pitch darkness, I felt and heard him move farther into my room more than I had watched him. Nah, man, can I use your phone to see? I just plugged it in because it was almost dead. I should probably leave it alone just in case we actually need to call somebody. How about yours? Dead, so what do we do? I sighed inwardly. Jake was a good roommate. He always had his half of the rent on time, and didn't leave messes in the common areas or use my stuff without asking. And if I told him to stop doing something like leaving his coat on the couch instead of taking it to his room, he stopped doing it. But he was not the brightest guy, and often looked to me to explain things or figure things out for him. Don't get me wrong, I liked him, but sometimes I started to feel more like his dad than his roommate. Well, I have to assume somebody in the building who doesn't have an almost dead cell phone has already called the power company. So now we just wait. There's really not much else we can do. Oh, okay, well, can we just hang out till it comes back on? It's so dark. Again, it was hard to not respond to Jake stating the obvious, but it was true that there was nothing really we could do until the power came back on but sit and talk. It seemed foolish to go on and offend him when he was my only companion for God knew how much time. Sure, man, why not? Go ahead and sit down. I already sat down. I was surprised to realize that his voice had, in fact, moved to where my bed was in the room even though I hadn't heard it move. Oh, cool. So how did you notice the power had gone out? I thought since you're home, you must have work in the morning. Generally, unless he was scheduled to work on Saturday morning, Jake would spend Friday nights out with his girlfriend. And like Jake, she was not terribly bright, but sweet and cheerily devoted to him. I had been dreading the day he would say that the two of them were moving in together, thus meaning I would have to seek out a new roommate. I hated most people on principle, so the idea of having to find another one I could stand to live with was daunting to say the least. I woke up because it's so dark. I've never been so dark in that room before. And naturally, this statement just confused me greatly. I wonder if I had heard him right. What, man? You woke up because it got darker. Yep, because of the dark. I still didn't think he was making a bit of sense, but he had just woken up after all. His initial response of yes, however, oddly unnerved me. Jake had been my roommate for over 2 years, and I felt very sure that in all that time, he had never given an affirmative response that wasn't yeah or uh-huh. Furthermore, we had had power outages before, so his assertion that it had never been so dark in his room before didn't seem to add up. And then I remembered that he had recently gotten, or rather his girlfriend had gotten for him, some blackout curtains for his room, to block out the sun when he needed to sleep during the daytime. If he had had those pulled, they were probably blocking out any small amount of light that had been filtered in from the outside before. And nonetheless, it seemed bizarre that it being especially dark had somehow woken him up. Well, if you have to work tomorrow, maybe you should just try to go back to sleep. I'll stay up until the power comes back on. No, I don't want to go back to sleep. Let's talk, Dan. Unnerved was steadily progressing to downright freaked out. Jake was a naturally laid-back and easygoing type of guy, so to have him suddenly use such a forceful and aggressive tone was very disturbing to me. Even worse, however, was him calling me Dan. One of the only habits I had been unsuccessful in breaking Jake was him calling me Danny. Eventually, I had just given up and allowed it. I tried to tell myself that he was probably just tired, and that was the reason for his uncharacteristic behavior. It dawned on me that I'd be much readier to accept that explanation if I could actually see him. As dark as it was in my room, even with the small amount of light coming in from a distant street lamp, I could barely make out his silhouette on my bed. Just a black, vaguely human shape in the darkness. "Why are you calling me that, Jake?" There was a moment's silence before Jake's voice responded, now in a decidedly more Jake-like tone. "That's what you prefer to be called, isn't it? You said so before." I can't fully describe the thrill of horror I felt as I realized that whomever or whatever I was speaking to was backpedaling. I was certain now that this was not Jake, and certain that whoever it was knew that he had shown his hand a bit. It was now desperately trying to return to acting like Jake. The tone was good, unsure, almost apologetic. That was very much like Jake. The wording, however, was all wrong. And there was another problem. I haven't mentioned that in over a year. Another pause. It was taking all my willpower to not jump up from my chair. Whether to confront the imposter or run from him, I wasn't sure. I think both the desperate, lingering hope that this really was Jake, as well as the notion that if it wasn't, it was in my best interest to keep playing along, kept me rooted in my seat. "Oh, haven't you? Sorry, I guess I'm just kind of tired. I can call you Dan, though, if you want." I couldn't take it anymore. This wasn't Jake. I was beyond sure of it now. I jumped up from my seat. "Who the hell are you?" I had only a second to reconsider the wisdom of choosing confrontation over fleeing as the imposter answered quickly this time in an appropriate tone of alarm. "What do you mean? I'm Jake." "The fuck you are? Tell me who you really are." "It's Jake. It's me. Danny, really. Why don't you believe me?" "Because I can't fucking see you and you're not acting like Jake. You aren't Jake. Who the fuck are you?" "I am Jake. I know you can't see me. Hey, wait, you said your phone wasn't quite dead, right? Let the screen come on just long enough to see my face. You'll see it's really me, Danny." This gave me pause. The voice in the dark was now sounding very convincingly like a frightened and confused Jake, and it quickly suggested that I use my only light source to prove its identity. I was starting to feel increasingly foolish and I cringed at my paranoid freakout. But still, I had to be sure. I turned to reach for my phone where I knew it was still sitting, plugged into the wall socket. I picked it up and the time appeared in white, causing a minuscule amount of illumination. As I was about to unlock it, it started ringing. Jake was calling. I didn't turn. I slid my finger to the little green phone icon in a kind of surreal haze of disbelief. "Hello? Hey, Danny, I forgot my key again. Can you come let me in?" "Jake?" "Yeah, it's Jake. Hey, is the power out? It's all dark." And the phone went dead.